I know this isn't a pregnancy or postpartum podcast. However, many women with autoimmune disease and sometimes other chronic illnesses get pregnant, myself included. Pregnancy usually offers a relief from symptoms as the placenta produces stem cells to help the body heal where needed. Plus, we usually take extra good care of ourselves while pregnant. It's a double whammy for health. But once baby is born, so many times a woman's health will fail. If you didn't have any health issues before, they may come forward during the season of depletion. A depletion that women usually don't ever fully recover from. It takes a lot of intention and consistency, two very difficult things with an infant who doesn't sleep. And then when, you have more kids in the mix, it's even more difficult. However, full nutrient recovery is absolutely possible. And there are strategies that can be implemented even with the craziest of lives to nourish the body, support postpartum healing and nursing, and help keep immune symptoms at bay and maybe even prevent an autoimmune disease from developing completely. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to the Therapeutic Food Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Mary Mitchell. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, therapeutic diet expert, and founder of The Road to Living Whole. There are many different diets out there. It's hard to know which one is right for you with your chronic illness and autoimmune disease. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you the foundational pieces every single therapeutic diet out there shares, and also how to use the best one for your particular diagnosis. If you've been looking for a meal planning partner, help navigating the complicated healthcare system, and want to feel better quickly, I'm your girl. Grab your kombucha and notebook. Let's dive in. I'm currently at the tail end of my fourth pregnancy, and some new science has come out recently, or at least it's making itself known to me, that is mind-blowing yet affirming to my own personal experience and those around me. One of the biggest battles we face as postpartum women is what we will call bounce back culture, where you're supposed to look the exact same way you did pre-pregnancy within weeks of giving birth. This expectation of bouncing back within weeks sets us up for failure in so many areas. Areas including breastfeeding success, the rebuilding of nutrients, repairing our pelvic floor, healing diastasis recti, and all of these areas directly impact our mental well-being as well as physical. And if we don't heal in these areas, it sets us up for the development of an autoimmune disease or for a flare postpartum. So approximately 10 to 15% of women may develop an autoimmune disease within the first year after childbirth. Conditions like thyroiditis, lupus, and rheumatoid arthritis are commonly diagnosed postpartum. In fact, my thyroid crashed 5 months after my third pregnancy. I am now considered hypothyroid, and I take thyroid MP daily. Another study found that women who had an autoimmune disease prior to pregnancy experience a mild to moderate flare of symptoms 20 to 40% of the time. And this is due to a variety of factors stemming from nutrient depletion. Hormones are all out of whack, there's a lack of sleep, increased stress on the body, and mental stress as well. From what I've studied and the researchers in the field that I've listened to, nutrient depletion is the biggest factor we have the most control over. And the standard advice we've been given has been terrible for our health. Go figure. One of the biggest ones is that extra 300 to 500 calories a day postpartum advice was not actually based on studying postpartum women. It was based on men. Researchers in the past, and probably many currently as well, didn't like studying women because there were too many factors out of their control, like our hormones. So they evaluated men and their needs recovering from a traumatic event and applied those to women, like we're little men. You'll read when researching that breastfeeding exclusively burns 400 to 500 calories per day, so that's what you need to eat to sustain it. Well, that's just sustaining the baby. That is not rebuilding our depleted nutrients. Newer research is showing newly breastfeeding moms need an extra 1,000 calories per day to not only support a sufficient milk supply, but to also replenish the nutrients given to the baby and used up at a faster rate during pregnancy. That's a scary number for women. I mean, it is for me. I know what happens when I eat excessive calories normally, which is gaining extra fat. The last thing I want to do is gain weight postpartum after gaining weight during pregnancy. It's intimidating and feels counterintuitive. But the goal isn't to fit into our pre-pregnancy clothes as fast as possible. It's to replenish, heal, and support a new life. Your body cannot heal in a depleted state, especially when the depletion continues postpartum. Nutrient depletion will most definitely lead to a depressed mood, difficulty sleeping, inability to regain muscle that was lost during pregnancy, or build new muscle if you are experiencing a sudden urge to start strength training after having a baby. The thyroid won't have it needs to function optimally, and the continued stress can trigger a flare in symptoms if you already have an autoimmune disease, or be the trigger pulled for the body to develop one. This all being said, you need those extra 1,000 calories. You can't get those extra calories from just anywhere. It needs to be from nutrient-rich foods so you actually replenish what was used up and given to the baby. Most especially mineral-rich foods. So you can't just eat a tub of ice cream every night and be like, oh, I'm supporting my breastfeeding. It doesn't work like that. So what should we be eating postpartum? Grab your paper and pencil, ladies. It's time to get into the good stuff. First, let's talk about the foods that tend to upset a baby's stomach. I didn't know this with my first, and my poor baby boy had such terrible stomach pains and gas those first few weeks until I went to my 6-week postpartum appointment. I was in tears to my doctor, who goes, oh, we didn't give you the list of foods that can cause a newborn discomfort? No, you didn't, sir. So I'm going to share that with you now because I think it's important, because a colicky baby makes things so much more stressful, and it's so painful to us, and there are things that we can do to potentially to really help it. Foods that often cause discomfort to a newborn are cow's milk products, cruciferous vegetables, beans, soy, citrus, onions, garlic, and spicy foods, and sometimes wheat, eggs, carbonated beverages, and caffeine. And this is like overwhelming to think about, right? Like thinking about all those casseroles that people bring on the meal train, all of those are exclusively dairy and wheat. Citrus is easy to eat and stays fresh because of the peel, easily kept on a nursing cart. And please don't ask me to give up coffee when I'm not even remotely close to getting a full night's sleep and haven't in months already. This all being said, typically you don't have to avoid all of them, and sometimes none of them, unless you have your own personal food allergies or sensitivities. What I've personally done is avoid or greatly minimize all of them the first 6 weeks, and then introduce one at a time every 4 days to see how my baby responds. For each of my kids, it was different. My first couldn't handle any dairy outside of food cooked in butter, basically, but milk, cheese, yogurt, forget it. My second has celiac disease, so wheat was her big one. My third, her big one was eggs. Full disclosure, I was dairy-free due to my own lactose intolerance by the time my second came around, and I've been dairy-free ever since. And I was gluten-free since we found out my third, that was the root cause of her colic. So she was, 8 weeks old. And so Adeline didn't have any gluten in my breast milk, but gluten does not bother her now. None of them could tolerate cruciferous vegetables if I OD'd citrus or spicy foods until around 3 months in. And I normally don't drink carbonated beverages. I also never eliminated coffee. I did stick to 1 cup a day, so I didn't overdo it. And I don't usually eat a lot of beans. So, full disclosure. Now that I've made you depressed with all the foods that you need to avoid or greatly minimize, let's get into what to eat, because this is what we really need. There are foods to help support our milk supply. These foods are oats, nuts and seeds, healthy fats, especially those rich in omega-3 fatty acids, foods rich in iron, protein, sweet potatoes, and water, which I know isn't a food, but it's absolutely essential. So keeping this in mind, where we're going to minimize foods that upset a brand new baby's stomach and foods that are going to help support our milk supply, what can a day of eating look like? Breakfast could be cooked oatmeal with chia seeds, almond butter, and chopped fruit or berries, and 3 pieces of chicken sausage. Morning snack could be a cup of bone broth with a side of jerky and fruit, or maybe a chicken and vegetable soup made with bone broth. Lunch, ground turkeys and sweet potato skillet. You could add some spinach there right at the end for an extra dose of calcium and iron. Be sure to make it taste good with salt and herbs. Afternoon snack, a banana with nut butter and a cup of bone broth, but probably not together because that would not taste that great. Dinner, you could do baked salmon with quinoa and cooked green beans. And then your before bed snack, avocado toast, using a full, small avocado and then butter on the toast. Bone broth doesn't necessarily support your milk supply, but it is such a healing and nourishing food. And it's about 9 grams of protein per cup, which is awesome because we're going to need a whole bunch of minerals, collagen, which it's rich in, and we need that protein to heal. You can use it as a foundation of soups and drinks alike. A lot of people like to drink it as a tea. I prefer chicken broth if I'm going to do that. And then, of course, a foundation of soups. It makes them rich and creamy. It's a really easy way to get, nourished and full and to help stay hydrated as well. And speaking of hydration, I highly recommend a 40-ounce refillable water bottle with a straw, or maybe 2, to get your water intake while boob trapped throughout the day, especially on your nursing cart, before your husband has to leave for work or something, filling them both up, and then you just can grab, and that's 80 ounces if you have 2 of them. And it makes it really, really easy because I will say I have the hardest time getting my water intake when I'm not at work. When I'm at home and I'm having all the kids and all of the things, my water intake's not great. And I have found this to be true for a lot of my friends that have gone through, postpartum and all of that too. One key to helping the body recover is to give it warming, mineral-rich foods. I recommend that vegetables be cooked. Raw is very hard on the body to digest, especially so in a time of healing, you want foods that are easy to digest and easy on the body because it's already doing so much work. So ideally, you would stick to cooked vegetables for the first weeks or so. Now, I'm going into the Phoenix summer, and the thought of cooked vegetables is a little bit disheartening because it's already freaking hot. But I plan on making cooked veggie style type side dishes. So you roast the veggies and you season them and then they're cooked, but you stick them in the fridge. And then you have your cooked proteins and you can do, cold veggie and protein salad bowls and, things like that. I'm not necessarily eating salad, but, veggie bowls, protein bowls. That's the word I was looking for. Another key is to eat until you feel full. And you're going to feel like you're eating a ton of food in huge portions. You are hungry, and that's okay. I would say, based on the math and average woman's height and build and stuff, ideally you're going to be aiming for 150 grams of protein a day and 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day, depending on your height and all of that. So big portions of real whole foods is to be expected. Eat until you're full. One trick to feeling full faster is to eat your veggies first, your protein second, and save your carbs for last. This also helps keep your blood sugar stable, which helps keep, the crash outs that can happen to a minimum. Learning what 40 to 50 grams of protein looks like per protein source will reduce the amount of stress of trying to feel like you have to navigate, right? And feeling like the need to track because you don't need one more thing on your plate. If you find yourself starving all day, make sure you're getting sufficient protein with every meal and snack, which, that meal plan that I gave you for a day, like the bone broth with your snacks gives you minerals, it gives you collagen, which helps you heal, and it gives you protein, and it helps fill you up, right? So the last thing you want to be is starving all day because you're already a hot mess, and being hungry makes you more of a hot mess. So let's talk shortcuts and nuance. I did mention liver, or I guess I mentioned iron-rich foods, but ideally, one of the best sources is liver. We don't really eat it in today's American culture. So my favorite form of getting liver and nutrients and iron especially is desiccated liver capsules. Depending on the brand you get, the daily intake recommended is 6 to 8 capsules a day. I usually split them up and have a couple with every main meal. This form usually doesn't cause constipation, but you can always cut back to half the recommended dose if it makes you feel more comfortable if you're struggling with that. I also enjoy liver pate with seed crackers. And, when it comes to pate, I found one brand that's not made with dairy, but some brands taste better than others. And I understand that it's like a mental thing along with like a texture thing, which is why I think capsules are like the way to go unless you've already been used to eating pate, but you might surprise yourself. It's pretty dang good. Even I give it to my 1 and 2 year olds and my kids, and they love it until they figure out what it is. And then they're like, ew, that's gross. But it is what it is. So desiccated liver capsules. Best way to get iron, get lots of bioavailable nutrients and support, all of the things. Really good stuff. Next up, you can buy pre-made bone broth that doesn't have any fillers or artificial flavoring, or you can make your own and freeze it in glass jars. Don't care. Do whatever's easiest for you and your family. I prefer chicken broth over beef broth for sipping. Going pre-made is significantly more expensive, but a whole lot easier to do. So do whatever makes you comfortable. And let's say you're put on a meal train and every meal delivered you can't eat, but your family can. Enjoy that break. Even if it's not the type of food you normally have in your home, let your family eat it. This is a short season. Enjoy having less work on your and your husband's plate. Make sure your husband or caregiver makes you plenty of food that you can eat. Between my husband and my mom, I know I'll be covered just fine. Everyone else might be, eating a bunch of casseroles and scrounging and eating more processed food than I like, but it's short-lived. It's a few weeks. And around 3 months, things really start to settle down and get more routine, and it's really much easier to get back in the swing of things then. This is not the time to stress over perfection and making sure everybody's eating the best of the best. Take advantage of paper plates and bowls, disposable casserole pans, shortcuts. Say yes to any help offered. And if you eat personally yourself, if you're eating 80% nutrient-dense foods and 20% is, sweetened drinks and ice cream or treats or whatever, this is called balance. It's not 50-50. It's 80-20, and it's okay. If you feel like you're eating yourself out of house and home, that's normal and expected. I remember after my second was born and I didn't get very much time at home or resting because I had a 4-year-old who, if he stayed home, he was quite destructive. So we went to parks and museums and all of these things. I found that I was like craving peanut butter like nobody's business, and I would just take the biggest spoon we had. I would dip it in a jar of peanut butter, and oh my gosh, it was the most amazing thing on the planet, and it sustained me. I found it weird, but knowing what I know now, especially on the other side, makes total sense. I needed calories, I needed energy, and I needed fats, and it gave me that. Keeping food on hand for you to be able to eat and asking others to help with the rest of your family is okay too. You're healing from a major medical event. You'll start to feeling energized soon enough and ready to tackle establishing a new routine and getting back into managing a household again soon. Quick recap before we end this episode. Pregnancy, birth, postpartum healing, and breastfeeding require a substantial increase in nutrient and caloric intake, especially postpartum healing and breastfeeding. Warming, mineral-rich, protein-heavy whole foods give the body what it needs to be able to heal optimally. You need an extra 1,000 calories a day in the first, probably 12 weeks to be able to replenish, make enough milk for baby, and supporting the healing process. Eat until you feel full with a foundation of real food. 80-20 is a solid balance between solid, nutritious meals and ice cream. Take advantage of any and all shortcuts that make sense for you and your family. If your older kids and husband eat a bit more processed food than normal in the first few weeks, they'll be just fine, I promise. You'll be up and ready to manage the household again in a few weeks, so take advantage of the time to rest, heal, and bond with your new family member. Nourishing in this season will help prevent autoimmune flares, the development of an autoimmune disease, thyroid dysfunction, and more. It is worth the effort, extra calories, and intentionality during this season. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you found this episode helpful, would you do me a favor and help others find it by leaving a review, sharing a screenshot on social media, or sharing the link with a friend? By you sharing what you've learned, others are able to find this podcast and join our community. Be sure to check out my website, www.roadtolivingwhole.com, for over 160 delicious recipes, a variety of meal plans, and a blog packed full of even more healthy living tips. If you'd like to learn more about how to work with me as your coach, you can schedule a free consult through www.roadtolivingwhole.com/health-coaching/. Until next time, friend. Bye.